Imagine standing at a crowded railway station where thousands of people pass you every day, yet no one truly sees you. The noise of trains, the rush of footsteps, and the weight of survival press upon you like an invisible storm. Now imagine that you believe, deep within your heart, that this is all life has to offer you. Florence Scovel Shinn would gently say that this belief, not poverty itself, is the real prison. In this story, we meet a man who sat on the cold ground of a railway station, holding out his hand for coins, believing that life had assigned him a small and unchangeable role. He had accepted lack as his destiny, and so lack followed him faithfully. Day after day, he repeated the same inner words. I am poor, I am dependent, I am unseen. According to the law of mind, these words shaped his world. Yet the universe, which Florence Scovel Shinn described as endlessly responsive, was quietly preparing a moment of awakening for him. One ordinary day, a well-dressed man stopped in front of him, not with pity, but with presence. He did not simply give a coin and walk away. Instead, he spoke a sentence that carried the weight of spiritual truth. To receive something in life, you must also learn to give. Those words entered the beggar's mind like a seed planted in fertile soil. Florence would say that every spoken word is an affirmation, and this one carried divine order. That night, as the train slowed and the station lights dimmed, the beggar could not sleep. The sentence echoed within him, challenging the identity he had worn for years. He realized that he had been asking life to give him everything, while offering nothing but his emptiness. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that man must first give thanks, give service, give faith, before he can receive abundance. The next morning, instead of repeating his old inner statements of lack, he made a quiet decision that shifted his destiny. He gathered a few simple flowers from a nearby vendor using the little money he had. When people approached him, he did not beg with desperation. He offered a flower with dignity. This act may seem small, but Florence would call it a powerful demonstration of faith. The beggar was no longer identifying himself as someone who takes. He was aligning himself with the law of giving, and the law responded immediately. People paused. They smiled. They felt something rare in a place filled with hurry. They were not giving charity anymore. They were participating in an exchange. Florence Scovel Shinn believed that when you change your inner picture, the outer world rearranges itself without struggle. The beggar noticed that people gave more freely now, not because he asked more, but because he respected himself more. Each flower he offered was a silent affirmation saying, I have something to give, therefore I am worthy to receive. With every coin placed in his hand, his inner confidence grew. He reinvested what he received into more flowers, not driven by fear, but guided by faith. Florence would say he had unknowingly activated the law of prosperity, where money circulates when it is honored and used with purpose. Slowly, the identity of a beggar began to dissolve. In its place emerged the consciousness of a giver, a merchant, a man aligned with abundance. The railway station, once a symbol of his limitation, became the stage of his transformation. This story reminds us, in Florence Scovel Shinn's gentle but powerful voice, that no condition is permanent unless we accept it as final. The moment we change our words, our self-image, and our willingness to give, the universe rushes in to support us. The beggar did not change his life through force or struggle. He changed it through alignment. He discovered that abundance is not something we chase, but something we allow by recognizing our divine worth. As Florence Scovel Shinn would explain, once a person aligns their thoughts with divine law, life begins to move forward with effortless order. And this is exactly what unfolded next in the story of the man who was once known only as a beggar. Each morning, as the sun rose over the railway station, he no longer woke with the heavy feeling of helplessness. Instead, he carried a quiet expectation, a knowing that life was responding to him differently, because he was responding differently to life. Florence taught that expectation is a powerful form of faith, and faith, when acted upon, opens doors that force could never unlock. The man noticed that people now looked him in the eyes. They spoke to him. Some even returned, seeking him out among the crowd. The flowers he offered became symbols of beauty, hope, and respect, in a place filled with noise and rush. What changed was not merely his action, but his consciousness. Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized that consciousness is the only reality, and when consciousness shifts from lack to abundance, outer conditions must follow. The man no longer affirmed, I am poor. Without realizing it, he was affirming, I am useful, I am valuable, I am a giver. These silent affirmations worked day and night, shaping his experience. Money began to flow toward him more steadily, not as charity, but as appreciation. With this flow came wisdom. Instead of spending everything immediately, he invested again in flowers, expanding his small offering into a steady supply. Florence would call this divine guidance, the still small voice that directs those who trust the law. He was not anxious about the future because fear no longer ruled him. Fear, Florence said, blocks the flow of good, while trust keeps the channel open. As weeks passed, the railway station was no longer his only place of opportunity. People suggested better locations, busier streets and markets. Doors opened naturally, without struggle or conflict. The man followed these openings with gratitude, another key principle Florence taught. Gratitude, she said, multiplies blessings because it acknowledges that the source is infinite. The more grateful he became, the more life seemed eager to serve him. Slowly, his posture changed, his voice changed, even the way he walked changed. These were not forced behaviors, they were the outer reflection of an inner transformation. He was no longer surviving, he was creating. Florence Scovel Shinn often reminded her students that man is not a victim of circumstances, but a co-creator with divine intelligence. This man had unknowingly stepped into that role. He expanded his flower business, formed relationships with suppliers, and learned the rhythms of trade. Challenges still appeared, but they no longer frightened him. Florence would say that obstacles are only delayed blessings, appearing to strengthen faith. When flowers spoiled or sales slowed, he did not return to despair. He affirmed silently that divine order was at work and that his supply could never be cut off. And it never was. Each challenge brought a new idea, a new contact, or a better opportunity. The identity of a beggar faded completely, replaced by the consciousness of a successful merchant. People who once passed him without noticing now greeted him with respect. Yet the greatest change was within. He understood, without studying any book, the truth Florence Scovel Shinn spent her life teaching, that self-respect invites respect from the world, and faith in oneself is faith in God expressed. He realized that abundance was never withheld from him. He had simply been blocking it with limiting beliefs. By choosing to give first, he unlocked the universal law that what you give returns multiplied. His story teaches us that prosperity is not about luck or background, but about alignment. When a person dares to see themselves as worthy, capable, and guided, life rearranges itself to match that vision. This is the silent miracle Florence spoke of, the miracle that occurs when the mind shifts and the universe responds. Florence Scovel Shinn would softly remind us that every story of transformation is not meant to be admired from a distance, but to be recognized as a mirror of our own potential. And this final chapter of the man's journey carries that sacred reminder. The former beggar, now a successful flower merchant, did not merely change his occupation. He changed his agreement with life. He no longer believed that circumstances ruled him. Instead, he lived with the inner knowing that divine intelligence always supports right thinking and right action. Florence taught that when we make peace with the law of good, life stops resisting us. This man's prosperity continued to grow because he remained aligned with gratitude, generosity, and faith. He gave freely not only flowers, but kindness, encouragement, and respect, reminding us that true abundance is a state of being, not a number in the hand. People trusted him, recommended him, and supported his business because trust flows naturally toward those who honor themselves. Florence often said that man's word is his wand, and this man's inner words had transformed from despair into confidence. Where he once thought, "I am nothing," he now lived the truth. "I am divinely supplied and guided." This silent affirmation shaped every interaction, every decision, and every opportunity. He no longer feared loss because he understood that the source of his supply was infinite and could never be exhausted. Even when challenges arose, he met them with calm certainty, knowing that every apparent delay was simply a bridge leading to greater good. Florence Scovel Shinn emphasized that faith is not hoping something will happen, but knowing that it already exists in the unseen. The man's success was proof of this principle in motion. His journey teaches us that we do not rise in life by demanding more, but by becoming more. When we stop begging life for validation and begin offering our gifts, however small they may seem, life responds with generosity beyond our expectations. The railway station was never his prison, his old beliefs were. And once those beliefs were replaced with self-respect and purpose, freedom followed effortlessly. Florence would gently tell you that you do not need to wait for perfect conditions to change your life. You only need to change your inner conversation. Speak words of power instead of weakness. Act from faith instead of fear. Give what you wish to receive, whether it is kindness, value, or confidence. The universe cannot ignore such alignment. This story stands as living proof that when a person dares to think differently, life must follow a new pattern. You are never too small, too late, or too broken to begin again. The same law that lifted this man from the ground of a railway station is active in your life right now, waiting for your recognition. Florence Scovel Shinn would say that your good is seeking you just as earnestly as you are seeking it. All you must do is open the door through belief and action. And now, in her loving and encouraging voice, she would say this to you directly. If this video is helping you, inspiring you, and awakening something within your heart, then do not let the inspiration pass unused. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and press the bell notification button so you can watch our daily motivational videos on time and continue aligning your mind with truth, faith, and abundance. For what you consistently listen to, you consistently become.